Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hanging Out with Howie. Tonight, we're going to talk about that difficult guests we occasionally run into at events. They could be a danger to themselves, to others, to us as DJs and our gear. So these will be techniques for dealing with them and our opinions are our opinions only. So when I put this out there, Eric jumped. He says, man, I got a lot of them. So go for it, Eric. What do you got?
All right. So back years ago, and I'm going to guess 5 or 6 years ago, I bought the Facade, which a lot of people use now. But for me, it wasn't just for the look of things. It was for protection of my gear. And it's one specific event that I can think of where this bridesmaid kept coming up and she kept, she was holding her drink over my stuff. And I said, look, lady, I said, if you spill that, the event's over. Night is over. Now, I like to kind of display my stuff. I've got nice gear. I like people to see it. But now that Facade is like my goalie, keeps people back, keeps them out of the way. And more importantly, their drinks, it's far enough away. Their drinks, even if they hold it at arm's length, cannot hold it over my laptop, my controller. So yeah, that's something that I've implemented to try to, just to keep that barrier, that little bit of that space to protect my gear because of those spills. A couple times I've had spills. And you know what? I'd rather have wine spilled on my Facade and ruin the whole, the fabric on it than have that wine spilled on my, my $2,000 laptop.
I hear you there. So, yeah. All right. We can go in any direction you want, whether they're unruly or just holding drinks. But we'll go to Jay now because we typically leave him for last. So
I've encountered everything over my career. I've had the unruly that I've had to go up to a client and say, I'm going to be honest with you. This guy is getting a little threatening with me. Oh, he's totally fine. I said, you guys signed a contract. And one of the clauses in the contract is if the DJ is made to feel threatened or if the gear is put at jeopardy due to intentional or unintentional actions of client or guest, the DJ reserves the right to end the event at any time. I said, I've never had to invoke that clause. I said, but if this guy comes up one more time in a kind of threatening manner, it's either going to go to punches or I'm going to end your event. So I'll just tell you, getting rid of him's probably easier than getting rid of me. So that's when it got really extreme. I had one incident where a guy went up when I was talking to the bride and groom and changed a song by hitting play on the other deck. He and I got into words and I was very respectful, but I made it very well known and he kind of gave me the, hey, calm down, you're just a DJ thing. And I was younger, and I will admit, I said to him in no uncertain terms, this event ends at 4:00, and I would really love it if you would have this discussion with me after the event outside. And I was not happy. But I think being tactful and diffusing is the best way to go. And when I was with San Diego PD's crisis team, I learned this. When I was the general manager of a nightclub in San Diego, I certainly learned this. You can talk almost anyone. I was able to talk a president of a local motorcycle club who's now doing a life sentence for murder out of a club without swinging, touching, or anything. I think you really need to make it very well known, but you also need to be very alert. I see a lot of video of DJs who are so in the zone, in the mix, that they don't know there's somebody leaning up against their table, And sadly, I did a wedding 2 weeks ago. I had a gentleman who was probably 90 who grabbed the connecting piece of my Evolve 50s and grabbed it as in to hold on to. And I reached over to his arm with both hands and I said, sir, I'm terribly sorry. This will not hold enough weight for you to lean on it. Can I help you across the floor? What can I do to get you out of the situation where you feel the need to grab this? He goes, I'm just old and I'm not steady. I'm like, I will walk you to your table, whatever's needed. But it's the downside of the job. And I agree with Eric. I've got to get a Facade for 2022. And I want it that it shows what I'm doing, but I want it to elicit that people don't go over your gear. I mean, Brian's got the great event table. The problem with that and a Facade and everything else is they at some point can go, hey, can you play and the drink's doing this routine, and you assume
I haven't had
they
that
understand.
issue. I just letting you know,
Ever?
people tend not to come forward to it because it's 24 inches deep. It's too far of a throw for them. They'll come beside it before they try to go over.
Okay, that's a great thing to hear. So maybe that sort of design is something that would work.
Yeah.
I mean,
a good design. And that's just my experience. But yeah, they typically people don't lean over the front of it. They'll come around it. Yeah. And Eric will probably tell you the same thing with the facade.
Mm-hmm. You need to realize something. You are performing at the event to help a client have an amazing time. If some of their guests, and it often happens that it's a family member too, have had too much alcohol to understand reality, well, you have to walk that tightrope, but you do have to let the client know that, at least with me, my contract has a very clear clause that says if the DJ is made to feel threatened or if the gear is at jeopardy through intentional or unintentional actions of the client or their guests, the DJ reserves the right to end the event.
Howie, why'd you let him go second?
Good.
Good night, everybody.
Yep. I thought this was a Tuesday night music show for a minute.
I know. What the hell?
All right,
we're going to go to Aerosmith. What happens?
We're going to go to John C. from Boston. How do you handle up in Boston? Hey,
you say, hey, what are you doing leaning over that? When the facade first went up, what you doing there? It was close to the table, but now with some changes made in the design, the facade's actually backlit, so that pushes it probably another 24 inches forward. So like BSR started to say, it's too far for someone to even yell something at you because you can't hear them. So they're forced to come around on either side. So it's beforehand when the facade was just there, you got the wine glass and then leaning over the top. Now there's lights and it's just like they think they see you, but you're still a good 6 feet away from where they can actually Irish whisper something to you. So a lot of times they come around to the sides. I'd rather someone come up on me from behind than just lean in over the side with a big wide open top glass. It's about protecting the gear. And those people, you don't want them to fall or to hurt themselves. We have the stanchion posts with the bank ribbons that you can stretch out and clip. So usually I put about a 3-foot line on either side of me if I'm playing in a pub or a bar or something like that. So they just can't come at me and just blindside me when I'm looking down. They're not just suddenly in my face. Usually they're coming up from behind me and I get time to hold them back and keep them, because problem guests don't just magically all of a sudden show up as a problem. They kind of work that meter. They start off, they're a little talkative, then they get a little braver when they've talked to you a few times. Then you're their best buddy. They want to come up and put their arm around you and tell you a few more things. So you just try to keep it in check and not be surprised. Pay attention. Keep your eyes open, like Jay said.
Thank you, John. Hey, we're going to go to my buddy Bill from Maryland, who also happens to be a paralegal at Dewey, Cheatham and Howe, and a soothsayer of all things legal, music-wise, and so forth. So
you've got a great haircut this week.
Yeah, looking good.
I'm digging the haircut. Looking nice.
And looks sharp. Looks sharp.
Looks great.
So I'm going to borrow the words of one of the greatest coolers in the bar industry, Dalton, who said, you have to know when to be nice. When somebody comes up and makes a request, be nice. When somebody comes up and calls you a jerk for not playing their song, be nice. And at some point, you'll know when not to be nice. And that's because Dalton will tell you. So you have to have your inner Dalton. And because, well, of course, unfortunately, Dalton passed away. But you have to have that inner Dalton to know. And in my opinion, it's just kind of one of those things. Everybody's already brought up the facade. I got a facade last year because of COVID. I'm going to keep using it because I figured out that it does provide that kind of shield. It gives you distance. And in the weddings that I've done with it and other events, just as Howie said, or Brian said, they come around the side. And I'm okay with people coming around on the side. I'm even okay with people walking through my, behind me or between me if they need to get from one side of the room to the other without passing on the dance floor, as long as they're nice. Once they're not, they're not. That's it. They're done. My biggest ever situation that occurred at an event, it occurred on a boat. And someone went up to that guest and said, there's kind of a lengthy swim here. And I don't know if you ever heard this or not, but Chesapeake Bay is full of sharks. Not really, but, hey, they shut up and they started acting nice. and that was my inner Dalton that said that to that person. But they weren't from there, so they didn't know any better.
All right. Thank you, Bill. And last but not least, my wingman and co-creator with crazy off-the-wall ideas, Brian S. Red.
I think everybody's given some great ideas tonight. And I couldn't agree with all of you more. In fact, as I'm kind of thinking of what to say, one by one, you're ticking them off,
I know.
I was going to make this big roadhouse thing, no, Bill got it. It's funny though, because what I do on a microphone when and Jay, we've talked about this. It's very casual, and I kind of sound like, I don't know, like I'm talking now, right? But if you don't know me, you can't read me. But when someone approaches me, I turn that nice meter up to like 11, and I'm really friendly to people. I've been doing this summer. Hi, how are you? Like almost taken back because they didn't expect me to be that way because of my microphone presence. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, hi. Hey, what can I do for you? Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll take care of that for you. Thanks for coming up. And they're just like,
it's almost I ever say that part.
It comes on, it falls into the category of under promise and over deliver, because they're hearing me on the microphone, speaking one way, but then when they actually approach me, I'm like the nicest person they've ever met. It's worked well. It's diffused things that I know maybe might have gotten out of hand later on in the evening. But it like Bill said, you know when to be nice until you're not nice anymore. And going to what Jay had said about somebody touching his gear, I had a situation that I didn't even tell you guys about at one of my first gigs this year, where I went to the bathroom and I came back, and these people who I'd been very kind to and had been playing a lot of their music from their, they belonged to an ethnic group. They were Indian, and they wanted a lot of Bollywood and things. I was hooking them up. I was being very kind to them. Went to the bathroom, came back. They were behind my booth on my computer looking up songs. And I went nuts. And they didn't know what to do. They were just so taken back by it. And I think they were so taken back by it because I was so nice to them before. So it meant more to them that I was not so nice in contrast. And I meant what I said, and they didn't get another song the rest of the night because I wasn't going to listen to them. But yeah, I like that. Be nice until it's time to not be nice anymore. And that's right. All you can really do. There's no magic way to tell anybody how to handle stuff. Every situation's different. Helps you got some street smarts, you kind of know what's going on. You kind of understand people. Some are going to be able to handle it. Some are going to struggle with it, but just do your best out there. That's all you can do. Just try to be safe.
Be respectful.
Yeah.
It's amazing how far it goes.
Most of the time, that is the key. Just be cool. You're extra cool to them, and they're going to be cool to you. Even if they're out of hand, they're going to be cool to you.
But disarm them. I get a lot in my market. I get a lot of military, and I've had weddings where I'll get guys that are like wasted. And the first couple requests are nice, and then by the third and fourth, it's like, dude, you got to hook this up. And I'll just out of nowhere be like, dude, are you military? Yeah. Hey, man, thank you for your service. And all of a sudden, the whole game changes because they realize, like, well, wait, I'm supposed to be mad at him because he didn't play some stupid song. And I'm like, you know what? Let me plan to get that in a little later on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, man. Thanks again, man. I appreciate it.
Just be relatable. Or
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
They think we're not people and we're not on a job. They think we're just there because we like to party and
right.
they don't always understand we're professionals. And I think when you can be that, they get it a little better.
Well,
sorry to interject.
I've only had to invoke this a few times, as far as shutting off the music. I mean, when it gets dangerous, where either some sort of a altercation breaks out, or I feel threatened, I immediately go to this. The very first program I have in my lighting
house lights,
everything goes white, and the music stops, and I have the microphone, and I just warned them that, hey, if this doesn't stop now, the event's over. It's in the contract. I feel threatened, and it's over. I only had to do it 2 times in my whole life, in my whole career, rather. But everybody else came up with some good stuff. I mean, that 5-panel facade that we used at Beret at Expo this summer, that actually does force people to come around the side. Yeah. I love that thing. I know that, a while back there was like, oh, facades are out of fashion, but no, they're back.
It's a safety thing.
They're back. Yeah. And the event table, that's perfect. It's built inside, so they have to go around to talk.
It's been my experience they usually come to the side of it or come around the back. I can't recall anybody leaning over the front of it. There's really no room to do that with the computer there and such. They'd rather come around.
So, can anybody else think of anything, relating to someone being a danger to themselves or to others that they would like to add? Go ahead, Eric.
So a couple ideas there. And one beautiful thing about this is that sometimes we all come up with different ideas. Sometimes we're all on the same wavelength, and it's amazing how we are. But for me, I don't want people coming around the side because I have wires wrong. And I don't want them coming around the back because my power cord is usually coming from the back. So I really want them to stay in front of me, but far enough away that they're not going to danger my equipment. So with that being said, we had a situation a couple of weeks ago where, everything is always taped down. We're real meticulous about that. Myself, the guys are. But this guy, it's late at night. They had bought the 8-hour package. It's 7.5 hours into the reception. My guy Scott is DJing. A guy comes around the corner. He hooks his foot on a light tripod. The tripod starts to fall over. Scott went to grab it, and he pulled something in his arm. He pulled some tendon or something. He has to have an MRI on his arm because it's hurt for 5 or 6 weeks now. So, that I like the people to stay in front of me. I want them staying in front. And I usually have a flashlight, and I'll just shine it on the ground and say, please don't come back here. Too many wires. And I'll just go like this, like say it louder to me. And that's kind of my experiences. I want them in front of me, but I don't want them too close to me.
Now that I think about it, I think I wave them around. Like they'll come up and they'll look at me like, what do I do? And I'll come on. And I do try to run all my wires to the wall on one side, and I don't use that side.
Oh, so that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So you have the left side to have them come over. The right side is cables.
Yeah.
Tell Scott I have a lawyer too. By the way, Eric, tell Scott I have a lawyer for him.
We're on it.
So I expect you'll be selling pencils pretty soon down at like Spock. So I'm just saying.
But Scott's like, I need a roadie now. I'm like, oh great, because he can't lift.
He needs Izzy Itzkowitz from Dewey, Cheatham and Howe.
Poor guy.
A really quick funny story. I met with a client about 8 years ago at their apartment. Both fiancés, and we're talking, and he said, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I'm like, no, I'm really sorry. Where would I remember you from? He's like, I was a groomsman in a wedding about 3 years ago.
I was a drunk shithead.
Like, okay. He goes, there was a problem at the end of the night. I'm like, 3 years ago, I had one wedding that was a real problem child that like I want nothing to ever do with again. He goes, was it at the Sunset Room? I'm like, oh, yes. He goes, that was the one. I said, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't want to upset you guys, but I'm not the right DJ for you. And I start closing my case, and he goes, let me just explain real quick for you guys. The groom's brother got in a fist fight at the end of the night with the bride's uncle, and the groom, the bride's dad, the uncle, and the brother were all handcuffed and arrested.
Wow.
And let out of the room. And again, I will stress that this was a cover job at $100 an hour. And that's the kind of clients that were showing up. And I said, yeah, I'm not comfortable with this, guys. I'm sorry. I'm the wrong guy for you. And he goes, no, hold on. And he reaches into his back pocket. And I'm like, oh my God, is he going to pull a gun or something? Like, what is this? And he pulls out his wallet and he opens it up, and it's a police badge. And I look at it and I'm like, huh, you're a cop? He goes, yeah. He goes, that's why when that whole thing went off, I took off, because I'd been drinking. And I was a rookie at the time on probation. And if I got involved, that would have been my career. And I'm like, oh. He goes, my wedding's going to be all cops. So I reach into my wallet and I pull out my SD ID. I'm like, oh, here you go. Oh, okay. So I ended up doing his wedding, and it was all cops.
Yeah.
Which, if you've ever done a cop or a firefighter wedding, they can both get a little hefty on the cocktails as well. But they only go so far. But it was funny because it was the one wedding in my history and career where I just shook my head like, did this just happen? Are they beating the shit out of each other? And, you know, you're the DJ, so you have the mic. And I'm like, hey, guys, stop. Break it up. Break it up. And then after that, I'm just like, nah, that's all I'm going to say. And I started just putting everything away and leaving. And the police showed up. I was unloading. I was loading out of the room when the cops got there. They're like, "Do you see anything?" I'm like, "I'm just the DJ."
Yeah.
This is a good topic for another show, Howie. I'm sure we've got.
I'm gonna let Brian close this out with some words of wisdom that have been said before. That if something does happen there, Brian, if we're not if we're not drinking,
right? Well, that's a really good point to make. And I know most everyone in this room wouldn't go have a cocktail at an event.
Never. No,
and
never.
I
not
don't
a wedding.
I don't do it because I have a moral problem with it. I don't do it because I can't perform with alcohol in my system. The reason I don't drink anyway, but I used to. But the reason I don't drink at events, or I wasn't drinking at events, and I learned this a long time in the club business. The gentleman who ran the club kind of gave me the explanation on this. He was nice enough to do that for a young guy who had questions. Why can't I have a beer while I'm playing? He's like, look, if there's an altercation between you and a customer and the cops show up, if you've both been drinking, they're hauling you both away.
Yeah.
If
there you go,
the customer has been drinking and you haven't, the customer gets hauled away and the police look at you and say, hey, I apologize, have a good night. And you continue doing what you're doing. I've presented this several times. I've mentioned it several times, and I get arguing it. Why would the police show up at a club if there's a problem? Where do you guys play?
Yeah.
You know what? I play in like major cities downtown. Yeah. This is not. Yeah, there's police presence everywhere. It just works that way. I suppose if you live in Bug Tussle at your bar, it may not happen, but it happens in the city.
I got to go to this Bug Tussle at some point. I think there's a burgeoning scene.
A whole bunch of DJs are apparently from Bug Tussle because they talk like they're from Bug Tussle, but no,
Bug Tussle.
It just kind of puts you in the clear, no matter what the situation is. If you have, if you're straight, you know, you're not intoxicated, they're gonna blame the guy who's intoxicated, and you're gonna be fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's right,
because he's drunk in public too.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking us out, Brian, and we hope you enjoyed this. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section below. And if you have ideas for a topic you would like us to cover, we're open to suggestions. And
I apologize to everybody from Bug Tussle. I'm sorry. I don't hate you.
We don't mean to offend you.
We just don't understand each other all the time. That's all.
Right next to Petticoat Junction, Eric.
And Mayberry is
it's on the same train line.
In Peabody.
Near Hooterville.
Good night, everyone.